And on the line with us, Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent, New York Police Department officer, Republican nominee for the U.S. House of Representatives, a radio talk show host, author of Life Inside the Bubble. Dan Bongino's book, his website, Bongino, Bongino.com. Dan, welcome back to the program.
Always good to be here, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I'm wondering out loud whether it is time to say that the Republican Party should go the way of the Whigs. That it's been, really, I would say since the Eisenhower administration, since the Republican Party has offered any positive agenda to Americans. And this 6-year crusade to destroy the legacy and presidency of President Obama has reached the point with these 47 traitors writing this letter to the mullahs in Iran last week, has reached the point where Republicans are actually harming this country. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a lot of information.
Yeah, well, please tell me one positive. Again, I can go back to the Eisenhower administration. You read his 1956 Republican Party platform. He bragged about the fact that they had added 1 million people to Social Security. They had added 2 million people to the rolls of unions. They had expanded Social Security payments. They had increased the pay for teachers nationwide. He just goes on and on and on. It's all progressive stuff. I don't know of anything the Republican Party has done in my lifetime that would justify its continued existence. Do you?
Well, it's interesting that you put so much faith in political parties to save you. I thought we were all individuals responsible for our own success or failure.
I didn't suggest that they should save me, Dan. I'm thinking that they're not representing anybody.
The very premise of your question sets you up for failure. That what has government done for me or for us to make our lives so wonderful? What I find interesting is you so quickly forfeit away your own individual liberty. Oh, well, government will fix it.
That's not the opposite, Dan. It's not. This is not a binary choice between.
No, it is in a system where Republicans or Democrats have economies of scale, and it really is a binary choice. You have two choices. You can pick the party that runs Baltimore, Detroit, Stockton, California, and basically run every major American city they're responsible for into the ground and created epic levels of poverty. Those are just the facts. Or you can pick a party that defaults to individual liberty and says, you know what, you're right. One part of your premise is right, Tom. The Republican Party, good Republicans, there are a lot of bad ones, I agree, they acknowledge government doesn't have the answers, individuals do, and we're not here to solve your problems. We're here to provide...
Dan, you're ignoring the 800-pound elephant in the room. You're completely ignoring it. And then this is the thing that continually astonishes me about Republicans and libertarians. If the choice in a system where there is massive amounts of political and economic power out there, which are associated with massive amounts of wealth or massive amounts of political power, which is what we have in America right now, your choice is not between you being free as an individual or you being a subject of government. The choice is, who represents you. Are you going to have a government that represents your personal interests, or are you going to have a government that represents the interests of the rich and the powerful exclusively? We know, this study came out of Princeton just 2 months ago, Dan, that over the last 3 decades, the probability of Congress passing legislation that coincides with the interests of the bottom 90% of Americans is equivalent to random noise, whereas the probabilities of something being passed through Congress that is associated with the desires of the top 1% is like real measurable.
Tom, hold on. You got to let me answer the question, because there's two. You're going from one point to the next, and on each successive point, you're proving me right, not yourself. You're making the point that concentrated power, whether in the form of government or economic power, doesn't represent the majority of Americans' interests. What I find interesting is you gloss over the fact.
No, that's not the point that I'm making, Dan.
Well, no, that is
the point that I'm making is that you and I, as individuals, will never have the ability to take on concentrated power, whether it's government power or whether it's corporate power.
We do.
So the question we have to ask ourselves...
Not true. Tom, that is not what you said is not true. You can't say it and then move on.
How are you going to take on Time Warner if you hate their service?
Very easy. The way the market does it all the time, you cancel their service. Now, wait.
If I cancel their service, I got nothing.
Tom, here's the trade you're willing to make, which I find odd, and every progressive is seemingly willing to make only for other people, not themselves. You know, they want to trade the concentrated power, market power of a corporation where you can individually escape from it. I didn't like my health insurance company once. I canceled it. I didn't like Citgo gasoline, so I went to BP, okay? I can escape from it. You're willing to trade that for organized government power with the illusion that they're in it for the people. They're certainly not in it for me. I hate Obamacare. That I can't escape from under the force and barrel of a gun. And you're trying to tell me that that's a good trade? That's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, what I'm trying to tell you, Dan, very straightforward, is that your interests and my interests as individuals, our ability to know that our money is safe in the bank, our ability to know that the water we're drinking is safe, our ability to know that the food we're eating is safe, our ability to know that the drugs we're using are efficacious. You know, our ability to function in this world is right now, there's a battle going on between the billionaire class, the Koch brothers, the big oil, Koch brothers and big oil are essentially the same thing. Between big oil that gets, billions of dollars in subsidies every year from this government.
Right, but that's not a Republican position. Why?
It absolutely is a Republican position.
No, Tom, I'm a Republican. And
the House of Representatives, when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House, they passed a bill that would have ended those subsidies. The Republicans filibustered it in the Senate.
This is a massive mischaracterization. I'm not telling you that there are not phony, fraudulent
Dan, Republicans are the party of the rich and the powerful, period.
Oh, my God. Tom, this is like a joke. You can't answer the question. Seriously. How are you making the case to me?
Go back to my original question, Dan. Can you give me one legislative initiative that the Republicans have undertaken in my lifetime that is good for average working people as opposed to being good for corporations and rich people? Because I can give you a long list of things Republicans have done for corporations and rich people.
I'm afraid,
what have they done for me?
But I'll put it out anyway. How about the Reagan tax cuts from 70 to 28% in the 1980s that spurred unprecedented levels of growth?
There were no average working people who were paying 70% taxes at that time.
You know what? That's interesting you say that because there were the 20 million jobs Reagan created as a result of those tax cuts.
I thought government didn't create jobs, Dan.
What's that?
I thought government didn't create jobs.
No, they don't create jobs. They get out of the way.
Then how can you say Reagan created jobs?
See, I'm making my point again. Now, you won't let me answer. Reagan cut taxes, which put money back in the pockets of just about every American.
Reagan cut taxes, which put money into the Swiss bank accounts all over the world of rich people.
If that happened, let me ask you this. If that happened, and you can't, this is a question that you'll never answer because no liberal I've ever asked does. If that happened, and no one benefited from those tax cuts at all other than a few wealthy rich people, how come government revenue from taxes doubled from $500 billion to $900 billion after those tax cuts? How come? How did that happen?
Because the economy grew.
Oh, the economy grew because of tax cuts because people had more money to spend.
Well, Dan, first of all, you're using uninflated. You're not using inflation-adjusted dollar amounts, which is something Republicans always point out.
Oh, okay. So
because
let's adjust it for inflation. It went from 500 to say what, 800 billion, maybe. Still, how do you account for that?
Economies grow, Dan.
Oh, economies grow.
We were in the 1980s. You know, when you damage an economy, that damage doesn't show up for sometimes decades. The damage that Reagan did. No, I'm serious. In the 1980s, the economy was still growing as a result of decisions made by Franklin Roosevelt and Dwight Eisenhower.
The 1980s was not the stagflation era, where the Phillips curve went out the window. The 1980s. You're making the case to me the Carter years were good years. Carter himself called it the malaise. Yeah, you're arguing against the
compared with 34 years of Reaganomics. Yeah, it was really good. Our economy has been growing 1.5% for the last 6 years. It grew 3% every single decade in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 70s.
Right. No thanks to government. Government was exponentially smaller.
Hang on, Dan.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Dan Bongino, Bongino.com, Bongino.com. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, you got it.
Good talking with you.